Much love to you and yours. This is Life Coach 369A, the Feminine Principle, Siren Buddha Medicine. Embedding, Symbolism, and Sacred Geometry. Years ago, while learning different things about meditating, I ran into the malas, and it really got my brain thinking because culturally we have what we call a rosary. So I looked up the similarities that, yes, the mala and the rosaries are both used to keep count of prayers. While the person is praying, they can concentrate on the prayers. They can concentrate on what they're saying and how they're feeling, and use the beads on the different sections of the chain to help them concentrate, so that they won't lose track of the prayers. So I found that fascinating that there was a commonality. Now fast forward a few years, I'm looking at the rosary that I have sitting on my grandma's altar, on my altar with my grandma on it, mind you. And my rosary that I was given to me before my last two children were born is important to me, so I happen to place it on that altar. Now, fast forward, I'm thinking of Jung, that I studied in psychology, and Jung had this theory that the unconscious mind taps into symbolism. It taps into the ancient symbolism, and that those things are important for deep parts of our self-expression. That our ancient self needed to be actualized and expressed through these symbols. And so when you look at that and look at our culture, and then you look at the malas and the rosaries again, don't just look at what they use them for, but how they're also made, which is the embedding with the circles and the... Well, check this out.
That's the right question and a very appropriate concept. So we know that many experienced lucid dreaming triggered with Therify and all kinds of Stargate kinds of stuff. And that's how Nicholas started with evolving the phi ray. He said, when you get into the really dense part of the field, your dreaming gets much clearer. In fact, you're dreaming, you get alpha with your eyes open. I'm lucid dreaming and my eyes are still open? Hello. So, no, that's exactly the point here, is that if you did this right, your dreaming should get brighter and more dense, absolutely. And when we say high frequency or going to the next dimension, the only thing we ever meant was that as you superpose more axes of rotation on one spin symmetry array, example, tetracube, call it 3D, and then you rotate the cube on the 32-degree tilt, it becomes pentadodeca, and then you rotate that down a helix, that's called DNA. The fifth axis is a superposed spin. It's literally the only definition of 5D. Now, if you braid the braid of the braid of the braid on that dodeca helix called DNA, embed the thread to the string to the fat rope to the fat rope, then you can do that 7 times, and you have 7 spins outside, 5 spins inside, 12th dimension. All that meant was you coherently superposed rotations. The only definition of going to the next dimension. And it's also true that you can't go past 3 axes of spin without using golden ratio, otherwise you get destructive interference. So the only possibility of going to the next dimension here is to use golden ratio to add superposed spins, as in the thread to the string to the rope to the fat rope. And that embedding process, which is exactly how DNA responds electrically to bliss, is the only definition of going to the next dimension, which means simply you can embed in the nodes of a much bigger array.
So yes, the images and the words of each prayer that's in the person's mind connects with the bead or the wire and each part of the mandala. And that connects to the unconscious part of the mind as well.
Today we're going to be learning the all-important technique of wire wrapping. I'm going to be using some gauge wire. I'll wrap that short stem around the longer one. So I'm going to grab this, and I'm just going to make nice crisp turns.
One of the reasons why it's so easy to go into a meditative state while praying and keeping track of those prayers using the rosary beads or a mala is because unconsciously it superimposes us through the sacred geometry of those beads, through the spins and the circles, and the sacred geometry is embedded within the mandala, within the rosary. And that's how it's done. They help to increase a meditative state not only through the verbal conscious prayers or the visualizations, but through the unconscious mind and actually connecting the thoughts with the symbolism, as well as the symbolism connecting to sacred geometry and those shapes that actually make up all life form. And connected to that state helps us to feel calm, to feel connected, to connect to the all and to that shape or form that unconsciously symbolizes the whole, or an authority of peace, which is the whole.